What I'm going to talk about today is why you need a brand to survive and to prosper, regardless of the kind of business that you've got, the kind of product or service that you actually supply. I want to talk about as well what a brand is and what a brand isn't, because branding, probably next to SEO, is the most misunderstood and overrated and made complicated when it's quite simple subject that I've ever come across. So we need to understand that. And there is one key that I want to emphasize today that's going to unlock the door to branding for you and your business. And like I said, it doesn't matter what kind of business that you have. I want to then give you a practical 4-stage process of how you can actually build a powerful brand for your business. And if you put these 4 stages into action, you will automatically build a powerful brand. I don't have any problem in sticking my neck out and saying that. So after today, at least you will be able to return home and to be able to start to implement the plan for your powerful brand almost immediately, if not immediately. So I hope that that is going to be of interest to you today. But before I go any further, I do want to introduce a friend of mine that I bring along all of the time. And his name is Brian. I don't know if you can all see him from where you're sitting. If not, please feel free to stand up and just take a look at Brian, because Brian, he's a nice guy. Actually, he's very much like his sister, Brianna. Why don't I put Brian over here so that you can all see Brian? It's very much like his sister Brianna, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but no matter, because they both think in the same way, because they've both got a brain, and that brain works in the same way for both of them. So no problem there. And you'll see why we need to refer to Brian throughout the next 45, 50 minutes. Drayton and I were talking on the phone on Monday about the headlines. I don't know if those of you based in the UK have seen these. This one was from the Daily Mail. 120 firms a day are going bust in the UK. 120 a day. And it says there will be thousands more probably this year. And actually the true figure could be a lot worse, because that doesn't take into account voluntary administration, creditors' agreements, etc., etc. Because for all we know, it could be 500 firms a day going bust. And you've only got to take a look at the environment out there business-wise and see for yourself that, yeah, that's quite possible, especially in the retail sector. And although a lot of people are going to blame the banks for not lending money, but who would lend money to idiots in the first place? And all of the other things, all of the other factors that could happen with regard to closing your business down, I would like to suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that it has a great deal to do with the brand, or rather the fact that they don't have a brand, because that's the problem. You see, your business is either a commodity or it's a brand. There's no halfway house. If you're a commodity, then I really do feel so sorry for you, because all you've got to compete on is price. Pile it high, sell it cheap, or at least sell it as cheap as you can afford to sell it. Of course, there's always someone else that's going to be able to source it cheaper, buy it cheaper, sell it cheaper. And you're in this constant hassle, losing margin day after day, week after week, month after month, until in the end, for a lot of them, it becomes impossible to compete, because there's no margin left, because you're price-based, you're a commodity. A lot of people operate their business as a commodity when actually they could be building a powerful brand for their business. I was talking to an IT consultant a few weeks back, and he probably was one of the most cleverest IT people that I've met in a long time. He knew pretty much everything about every aspect of IT. And I said, wow, you must be making an absolute fortune then with what you're charging. He said, no, I've cut my prices. I said, what? You've cut your prices? He said, yes, I've cut my prices because that's the only way I can compete. What, you're one of the best that there is and you cut your prices? Well, that's because he was going out as a commodity, charging himself by the hour to do a vendor job, a vendor task. instead of being something that I call a brand. You've got no customer loyalty when you're in a situation like that, of course, because the minute a customer sees that someone else can do the job a little bit cheaper than you, they're off. No loyalty whatsoever. No differentiation that Rowan was talking about that makes you stand out from the crowd. You are just there, you do something or you sell something, end of story, you're a commodity. But hey, you know, if you're a brand is the greatest asset any business of any kind on the face of the earth can have or ever will have. It's the most valuable business possession that you can have. Whether it's to do with your image or whether it's to do with your balance sheet, the asset that you have as a brand is the most powerful thing. Former chief executive of Coca-Cola said, if you took away every single bottling plant, every single piece of equipment, every single piece of technology, every single staff member, and you just left me with the Coca-Cola brand name, and I walked into a bank and I said, I need $45 billion to rebuild. He said, I would be overwhelmed with offers. It would be my choice of which bank I chose to use to finance $45 billion. What's the equivalent of that with regard to your business? Your brand, if you build it, can live on for generations. It can build and maintain customer loyalty. No one's going to go anywhere else because they want you, because you're the brand. It will allow you to price in a premium fashion. You don't have to cut your fees. If anything, you increase your fees, you increase your prices because people are willing to pay extra for a brand that they wouldn't do for just a commodity. You'll have lower marketing expenses because you won't be chasing your tail trying to find a way to bring new customers in. Because if you build your brand properly, they'll be coming to you. If you employ people, wouldn't you want to work for a company that had a strong, powerful brand that stood out, that they could go to work for and think, wow, yeah, I work for, and then you name the brand, rather than some backstreet company that is just piling it high and selling it cheap, nowhere to go, and nobody really cares anyway. And if you do decide to create new brands that are associated with your main brand, how quickly people become accepting of those brands, simply because they know your original brand, they know what it stands for, they know what it's all about. Mike Myers of N2 Growth, which is a huge technology company, says, leaders who don't steward their brand as one of their greatest business assets deserve the fate that awaits them. And I wonder how many of those 120 companies that are going bust every day you could say that about. Branding is one of the most misunderstood subjects of any business. And I've worked for the biggest, I've worked for Virgin, I've worked for BT, Yellow Pages, I've worked for Barclays, I've worked for pretty much the top 10 global companies. And the number of people that understand what branding is really all about, in even those companies, you could probably count on the finger of one finger. They do not know. They think it's about technology and CRM systems and all of this kind of stuff, when actually branding is only about one thing, and that's psychology. And if you don't understand a little bit of psychology, and incidentally, most marketing courses never teach psychology. I don't get that at all, but they don't. But that's what branding is all about, psychology. So let's talk about what a brand is. Well, first of all, let's say what a brand isn't. And it isn't a logo. And yet every single time I attend a presentation or a networking event or whatever, someone will definitely come up to me and say, oh, look forward to hearing about you because we've just rebranded. And what they really mean is that some schmuck has come along and fiddled them out of about £20,000 to redesign a new logo that's blue instead of yellow and put it on a brochure or two. And everybody sits around all excited waiting for the phone to ring, and of course it doesn't ring because nobody gives a damn. A brand is not a logo. And I apologize if there are any graphic designers sitting here. I'm a graphic designer myself, But you'll understand the context in which I'm talking about later on. A brand isn't a slogan. Most of them are pathetic anyway, aren't they? A brand is not an identity, a corporate identity, an image identity, whatever it is. A brand isn't a symbol or a shape. It's not mail shots, mission statements or mantras. It's not colours, credos, calling cards, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, locked out, YouTube, them tube, me tube. It's not any of those things. It's not CRM, CMS, TCP, or even PMT. A brand is not a set of meaningless gimmicks, such as everybody wearing silly badges saying, have a nice day, or meaningless, stupid telephone statements. You know, hi, I'm Shirley, how can I help you today? And we won't go down that route. A brand is not even a promise you make to a customer. Now, I'm differentiating between that and a guarantee that you can give, because Drayton's well into guarantees, and we often talk about this. But what I'm saying is that most companies make promises that they can't keep. So what's the point in making them in the first place? Why don't you just do what you say you're going to do? And then you don't have to worry about the promise side of things. When a plumber promises to be with me on a Monday and then turns up on a Tuesday, what's the point of that promise? So it's not about that, certainly not. A brand is this: the total emotional experience a customer has with your company and with your product or service. In other words, the brand belongs to the customer, because Brian is the customer. It's his brain that we've got to think about. It's his thought processes. It's whether he thinks about you and your brand, not about you. You don't even control your brand. And that's another mistake that so many businesses make. You know, our brand is this. No, it isn't. It's what your customer thinks it is. And very, very rarely are the two ever aligned. The brand belongs to Brian and Brianna. And it resides in only one place, and that's the customer's long-term memory, a little place called the hippocampus. You know, we get about 10,000 advertising and marketing and promotional messages hitting our senses every single day. And we have this little tiny system called short-term memory, where probably 9,999 of those are trashed within a few milliseconds. Only the very best, only the very impactful, only the very ones that have had a tremendous effect on you will get through to this place called long-term memory. But when they do, when your brand gets there, believe me, it'll stay there forever, unless you do something really stupid. But it will stay there forever. Unfortunately, a lot of people do things that are very, very stupid. But if you do it right, it'll stay there. So let's quickly move on then to this 4-stage branding system. So I'm not going to just talk academia to you today. I'm going to help you to build a brand through 4 practical, no-nonsense steps. And the first one is the key, the secret that unlocks the door to building a powerful brand, which is missing from pretty much 99% of all businesses that I've ever consulted with, until, of course, I get there. And that's emotion. Branding is always based on emotion. A brand doesn't actually exist. It's a figment of your imagination. It's what you perceive, as we will come on to understand. But it's always based on emotion and nothing else. Nothing rational, nothing logical, only emotion. And we've got a fantastic opportunity nowadays to understand that so much more than we ever understood before, because we've got this thing called neuroimaging, MRI scans that allow us to actually see the brain working as things like marketing messages, advertising, copy, etc. are fed to us. We can actually see the response that is going on in our brain. Now, maybe some of you have heard about this, but you know, for a long, long time, Pepsi used to do this thing called the Pepsi Challenge. They used to stop people in the street and they used to say, here is a little beaker of cola. Taste it. And here's another beaker of cola. Taste it. Tell me which one you like best. And of course, 98% of the people would always choose Pepsi. But what somebody did only a couple of years ago was to actually reproduce that whole test in a laboratory using neuroimaging. And what they discovered was this: if you hand someone a beaker and say, try this, and hand someone another beaker and say, try that, 98% of people will indeed prefer Pepsi. And when they look at the brain, all of the area of the brain that is involved in taste will light up like those red bits there. Lights up like a sky on fire. And of course, very little with Coke. However, if you go up to the person and say, this is Pepsi and this is Coca-Cola, an amazing thing happens. The taste part of the brain, when the person takes the Coca-Cola, hardly lights up at all. But the emotional part of the brain goes off twice as much as the Pepsi did on the taste side. Emotion, connection, engagement, irrational meaning. And that's why Coca-Cola is the global brand, and Pepsi have been chasing its tail for many, many years, can't get anywhere near it. Branding is always based on emotion and nothing else. So the first stage in your branding process is to create not a USP, not a unique selling proposition, but an emotional selling proposition. Now, when Drayton and I did our branding seminar earlier this year, I actually did a workshop exercise, and I said, right, go off for half an hour and create your emotional selling proposition for your business. I knew what the result was going to be, that out of all of the people that were there, only 2 people actually came back with an ESP. They couldn't figure it. They couldn't get it. They were scratching their heads and they were wandering around the corridors trying to come up with this ESP, and they couldn't do it. And you know what? Most businesses can't, yet that is the key. Drayton has written for many, many years, it's emotion. Emotion drives everything. Emotion drives our lives. Emotion drives Brian and Brianna. Everything that they do is driven by emotion. We are wired as emotional people. The emotional benefit your product or service provides is your ESP, and that's what you need to create. And if you don't do anything else or learn anything else from my little stint this afternoon, you must go away and create your emotional selling proposition, because that is the answer to building a powerful brand. And I'm not talking here about rational features and benefits and how difficult it is for people to get out of that mindset of rational features, rational benefits, and thinking about emotional benefits. And you can only choose one emotion, by the way. You can't have a dozen or half a dozen. You choose one, and then you build your whole business model around the one emotional benefit. And it will work. And it will keep you on track and save you a lot of money and build your business fast track more than anything else that you could do. Emotions can move towards happiness, or they can move away from fear. In my book, which you can get today, see Mary at the back, I've got a whole page listing all of the different emotions that people have. And you can choose any one of them. It's up to you. You don't have to ask anybody, what emotion do you want generated from me or my product or service? You decide. You decide what you're going to do, and then do it. Create that emotion. Now, some people say, yeah, well, that works for consumers, but what about business to business? That's not an emotional situation, is it? Well, of course it damn well is. I mean, do we honestly think that the consumer walks through an office door into an office and immediately has a brain transplant and becomes something else? Of course not. It's the same brain, same person who's at the supermarket, same person who's being impressed by something that is seen in the newspaper, on the television, on the radio, whatever kind of brand strategy somebody is using, that's the key. It's no different for that person. In fact, Seth Godin, I'm sure you've all heard of Seth, or most of you have heard of Seth Godin, actually said, a B2B buyer is simply a consumer spending somebody else's money. That's all that it is. But it has to be emotional. Let's have a look at just a couple of emotional examples. When we talk about emotion, the old way of looking at things was you'd have a feature. Let's say we sold drill bits, we made drill bits. And from that, we would create a tangible benefit. Well, most companies, I would suggest, if they made drill bits, would spend most of their money on churning out literature and websites and God knows what else, talking about the drill bit, what it's made from, how long it is, size, weight, shape, colour, whatever. Boring, boring, boring. Who is really interested? The fact that you've been making these drill bits for 2,000 years, God, who is interested? And yet go onto any website. Don't you have something on the nav bar called About Us? Don't you, as often as possible, try and skip that bit that says About Us? Because you know what it's going to say, don't you? It's going to say, me, we, did, this. 1,000 years, great-grandfather, etc., etc. Boring, boring, and yet that's how people think, that's how you run a business. Someone got wise one day and says, well, I tell you what, let's not talk just about the feature, let's talk about the benefits. Hey, with this drill bit, you can drill a hole in the wall. That's the benefit. The feature's the drill bit, the benefit's the hole in the wall. Hey, big deal. Come to our house, there's plenty of holes in the wall. I didn't even put them there. Is that a benefit? Well, it might be a benefit in terms of some kind of a selling proposition that buy this and get that. But that is not an emotional selling benefit. But I tell you what is. Let's say that we buy a drill bit to drill a hole in the wall and then we put a picture hook on there or some kind of device that holds something. Maybe it is a photograph. And the emotional benefit, of course, is that when you walk by the thing that you've hung on the wall, what do you see? Maybe you see a memory. And maybe some of you right now are thinking of a photograph in particular that you bring to mind. That somebody that you were with, something that you did, some place that you were at, is called to mind right now. And I know that that's happening with some of you because you've done a state change and your faces are changing. And some of you, I can tell, are thinking right now. If we're not careful, we'll lapse into some kind of hypnosis session. I don't want to do that. But the emotional benefit is what you're going to get emotionally out of this whole thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing bingo, whether you're doing magazine subscriptions, whether you're selling hire cars, it doesn't matter. You've got to have an emotional benefit. So like I said, let's just look at a couple of different ways of doing that.
I know now just quite how my life and love might still go on. In your heart and your mind, I'll stay with you for all of time. And if I could, then I would. I'll go wherever you will go, way up high or down low. I'll go wherever you will go. Run away with my heart, run away with my hope. I'll go wherever you will go. I'll go wherever you will go.
Now, that's an advert, for those of you that don't live in the UK, for a brand of tea. Most of you guys from America only know Lipton, but we've got quite a few brands over here. And this one is Twinings, and they know their target audience, which is predominantly female, and this ad is all about, hey, in your busy life, just take 10 minutes out for yourself. Now, this campaign only launched 2 weeks ago. It has already had close on 1 million hits on YouTube. So popular is the soundtrack of that they've now released it on iTunes, and they reckon it's going to be a huge seller on iTunes. Now, where does it say about the tea leaves? Where does it say where they're made? How to use them? The packaging that it comes in? How long Twinings have been in business? It says absolutely nothing. But the word on the wire is Twinings sales have just shot through the roof. Because they don't usually do kind of brand advertising like this. Now, okay, you don't do tea, probably, but what's your version of that? That's the key for this afternoon. What's your emotional selling benefit? See, this one is moving towards pleasure, isn't it? Moving towards happiness. Let's look at just one more, which moves away from pain.
ผมอยากมีเวลามากกว่านี้เวลาที่จะบอกลูกผมว่าผมรักเขามากที่สุดในโลกลุกขึ้นมาลุกเจ็บนิดเดียวเราลูกผู้ชายนะอยากใช้เวลาเข้าใจเขามากกว่านี้โกหกชัดๆฉันเห็นแกไปมั่วสุมกับดนตรีนั่นแหละบ้านเพื่อนอยากฟังในสิ่งที่เขาอยากพูดแน่แล้วใช่ไหมออกไปอยากคุยอยากฟังเพลงของเขาอยากขอโทษอยากมีเวลามากกว่านี้เวลาที่จะได้ทำในสิ่งที่ผมยังไม่ได้ทำ
You know, that's one of the most successful advertising campaigns for life insurance ever done in Asia. That was Ogilvy and Mather Asian office. Fantastic, yeah, moving away from pain. What does it say about the life insurance policy? Did you see all the small print? Did you read about all of the terms and conditions? Everything else that you see in a typical, boring, pathetic, easy to forget life insurance advertisement. All about emotion. And like I said, one of the most successful campaigns. And I don't mean successful in the fact that it won an award. It did, by the way. But you expect that with O&M. But also that it actually sold one hell of a lot of life insurance policies. Now, I know what you're possibly thinking, some of you, and that is, well, you know, we don't do life insurance. We don't do anything exciting. We just sell boxes of paper clips. Or, heaven forbid, we just sell aloe vera. Well, have a think about this. This is toilet paper. Now, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of toilet paper, if you'll forgive the pun, but we all know what it's for, don't we? We all know what toilet paper is for. And it comes on a roll, and it's just compressed paper. So how is it that Andrex, for 39 years, well, actually, it will be 40 years this year, can charge 30% more for their toilet tissue than anybody else's toilet tissue, when the equivalent brand is 30% less in price? And you've got people like Tesco's and Asda doing their own at sort of like 25 pence a roll. It's just toilet paper. It's only going to be used once, presumably. Why are they able to charge 30% extra? Well, you know what the answer to that is. It's a puppy. A puppy. Because when you buy an Andrex toilet tissue, you don't buy toilet tissue. You buy what Brian and Brianna have in their long-term memory about a puppy. And it's that puppy that sells you, because that's the brand. It's the emotional selling proposition. And that's what you need to create. And anyone can create an emotional selling proposition for anything. And actually in my book I said that once I went through the entirety of Yellow Pages and I created an emotional selling proposition for everything down to the letter X, which was xylophones. Xylophone manufacturer. It's easy to do. All you need to have is some thought about it, and then attend lots of Drayton Bird seminars and get lots of his material. Right, let's move quickly on to perception. We talk about emotions, and we have this saying called perception is reality. You've all heard of that? Perception is reality? Yeah, of course you have. Except that nobody understands what they're talking about when they say it. Well, perception is reality. Yeah, what does that mean? It means that the only way that you generate an emotion is actually through the 5 senses that we have. Well, Aristotle said we had 5 senses. We've actually got about 30, but let's stay with the basic 5. The sight and the sound and the taste and the touch and the smell. That's how we are able to generate emotions, through what we perceive. Senses create emotions. And you can control the perception of your business by the senses that you use and the way in which you use them. That's why I said you're not in charge of your brand, it's in Brian's head. But you can control what goes into Brian's head through perception. And that means using the 5 senses. Now, I'm going to talk about 4 of them very quickly, because the 5th is the visual sense, the sight sense. And most businesses, that's all they ever work with, is the sight sense. It's about a video on the website, it's about a brochure. It's about reading something, and that's all that anybody generally does, because there's this fallacy going around that we are, quote, visual people. Anybody ever done any NLP here? Raise your hand. Yeah. So you've been NLP'd upon, sir, and you will have been told that we're predominantly visual. That's crap. We are not predominantly visual. We are predominantly whatever senses appeal to us and have an impact and an effect on us at any stage of our lives. You can control the perception of your business with the 5 senses. So let's put visual to one side, because you're already doing that. So let's talk about the others. Let's talk about audio. So if you're creating something at this moment in time, let's say you're just about to hand the printer a big load of money for a brochure. Well, how about thinking about doing the brochure as audio instead of print? Could the CD actually be your brochure? Does it have to be a CD? What tracks would it include? What languages? How would you create something emotionally using a CD or using an MP3 track or whatever it happens to be? How about a message from the owner or CEO? Does that have to be written in a boring annual report, or could it be something a lot better? Something that somebody could listen to on the way to work in the car. You know, we're emphasizing video at the moment in the marketing world as being really, really important on a website, and I actually think that it is. But so many people that I speak to say it would be great if we could get an audio version of this, because we can listen to it on the way to work, in the car. Yeah. How about the sounds of laughter, regret, happiness, fear? You can put all of those on audio, can't you? I worked with charities where you can put so many different sounds on an MP3 or a CD. Sounds of little children crying that are going hungry. Sounds of trees falling in a forest that's being denuded by greedy people. So many different ways in which you can create an emotion. Remember, that's what we're trying to do here. I'm not saying use audio as a gimmick. I'm saying use it to generate your emotional selling proposition and reinforce it. So that's audio. What about smell? Do you know that 75% of our emotions are triggered by aromas and smells? And yet it's funny, when I walk into the average reception area of a building, I generally find the reception area smells of one of 2 things. 1 is nothing, and 2 is the receptionist's BO. That's it. There isn't anything else, unless there's a cactus plant in the corner that hasn't been watered and fed and polished and cleaned for sort of 25 years. That lets off a pretty nasty smell at times as well. Most publicity materials only smell of the ink that they're printed with, but you can get fragrances embedded in your print. How about using something like that? Do you know that when a Las Vegas fruit machine has a particular aroma placed around its perimeter, takings on that machine go up by 45%? There are retail areas in the UK where if you spray a lemon-scented smell aroma in the area, the shopping increases on a Saturday when they spray it by 64%. How can you depict the smells of your product or service? Well, it's easy, because you can make any smell that you need for your business in a laboratory nowadays, and there's a company called Dale Air in York that can make any smell, any fragrance, any aroma that you need. It's created dragon breath for museums. It's created football socks smell after the match for various other companies. Any smell, and I tell you what, they are fantastic in terms of what they offer, because as long as you buy enough from them, and that doesn't have to be that much, we're not talking sort of like thousands of pounds. As long as you buy enough of the aroma from them, they'll create the aroma for you free of charge. How about that? So you haven't got any excuse not to use smell in your business to enhance your brand and to create that emotion. You know, there's an airline called SAS, which is Singapore Airlines. And they have this scent called Stephan Floridian Waters. And the stewardesses use it as perfume. There's another mixture that the guys use for their aftershave. But they also spray it and impregnate the towels, the face towels with it. Now, Singapore Airlines, 17 years, voted the world's best airline. So whatever BA says, forget it. Singapore Airlines Services is the world's best airline for 17 years. And when they ask their passengers, what is it that makes them want to fly with SAS more than anything else? Is it the Egon Rone food? Is it the fact that the seats are so spread out, more leg room than any other airline, and so on and so on? They say, no, it's that smell. It's the smell, because every single time I smell it, it reminds me of where I've been, places that I've been to, things that I've done at those places. Like the photo on the wall, the evoking of the memories. So you should be able to create something for your business using smell. What about taste? How can you use the sense of taste in your business to create a powerful brand? Now, I'm not saying that you have to own a restaurant in order to be able to do this. If you do, then great. You should be way, way ahead of me. But if you don't use food in your business, then at least you can brand your business using food. And the example that I use is the Skoda Fabia car. Now, you might remember this, those of you that live in the UK, a couple of years ago, took the car industry advertising by storm, because this was a car that was made entirely out of cake. Icing sugar, marzipan, and layers and layers and layers of jam, sponge, and cake. And Julie Andrews was singing, "These are a few of my favourite things." And that's all that it was. And I actually was involved with some aspects of the take-up of that campaign afterwards. You know, Skoda dealerships had a 660% increase in footfall into their dealerships. 660%. At a time when the car economy over here is way, way down. Way, way down. Got nothing to do with food, but it had everything to do with emotion. I mean, you can see from this still, it's talking about the engine and the CC and the upholstery and the colour and where it was made and how long Skoda have been in business, etc., etc. Well, actually, of course, it doesn't. It's just someone singing a few of my favourite things, and there's a car made out of cake. Biggest selling car 2 years ago. Fantastic. So that's taste. What's your version? You could do this. This is not rocket science, is it, folks? This is very, very simple to do. But you're just looking in the wrong place to build a brand. And then what about touch? How much do you involve touch, the tactile aspects of your business? Now you could think about packaging. There's a nice example of packaging there of some banana shake, packaged in a way that makes it look like a banana. I mean, how difficult is that to come up with an idea like that? And there's other things. What about business cards that have this braille-like raised surface on? And cans and bottles like the Coca-Cola bottle, shaped to be like Marilyn Monroe, apparently. Recognisable from any other bottle when the lights are out and you're feeling around for your Coca-Cola bottle. You can find that Coca-Cola bottle before anybody else's bottle. And it's patented, and they will sue the arse off you if you ever go near anywhere like the shape of their bottle that they've patented since about 1924. Fantastic. Touch. Other ways of touching. T-shirts that you can send out in a little mail pack that all works together. So you've got visual, you've got touch. Maybe you'd have something that smelt in there as well. Hopefully not a used T-shirt. All of these things come together to create a powerful brand for your business. And then finally, we've got innovation. You know, there's a statement, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So, folks, it's time to change. It's time to innovate. And you can begin innovating by creating your brand in these 4 steps. Brands must keep innovating or they fade. You can't just stay in the same place all the time. So my question is this: how can you use the 5 senses in a new, exciting or different way to engage with your customers and potential customers? Think of all of the things that you can use, and this is where graphic design, logos, print, web, social media, technology, SEO, you name it, that can all come into play now, because these are tools that you use for the brand. They're not the brand, but they certainly are the tools that you need to engage in order to create your brand. And there's just so many different places in which you can innovate and do things differently. That's what I like to have the pleasure of working with Richard Branson, like Rowan did. And he's just a great guy because he's always innovating and he's always doing something different. Scaling down the outside of Canary Wharf, having some tea with someone on the top of a hot air balloon. Innovation, like Rowan was saying about going down the street with a limo and the ex-Bond girl. Actually, did you know that one of the Scottish Widows girl, I beg your pardon, did you know that one of them was Sean Connery's daughter from early on? I don't know whether that was the one. So, there are 3 times when you can use this innovation, 3 times when you can use these senses, 3 times when you can use this process. That is before the sale. So all of your pre-sale materials, all of your advertising and promotional activity that takes place before somebody comes to you as a potential customer. Innovate in all of those areas. And then, of course, if they become your customer, then you innovate again. Then you introduce all of these ideas again during the sales process. And then, of course, afterwards as well. Don't forget that vital area, which is what most businesses do, don't they? Once they've sold you something, you never hear from them again until they want to sell you something else. That is the one thing that you cannot say about Drayton, because he sends more emails out than Google and Yahoo combined, I think. But he doesn't send them out to try and sell you something every single time. Of course he wants to sell you products and services. That's the business that he's in. But isn't it relationship? Isn't it about just maintaining that relationship with you? It's fantastic. So we've got 3 places where we can innovate: before, during, and after. Let's have a look at just 3 ways in which companies have innovated that I think are outstanding. For those of you in the UK, you will know about this one, comparethemeerkat.com, which is a rival website or a competitor to comparethemarket.com, which is one of these websites that's called a comparison website where you just look down for who's giving you the best deal. So the whole campaign is, don't go to comparethemarket.com if you want to know about meerkats. Go to comparethemeerkat.com. And they've taken over villages and created a meerkat community. They're doing meerkat toys. This campaign is one of the most successful campaigns that we've seen in the last 10 years, and good for the client to be willing to take it on. How about something as small but important as this? Anybody ever been to a Oaxaca restaurant? Great. Okay, so you will know that instead of giving you a little box of batches, they give you a box of these. Little tiny flip pack of these. Sow your own chili seeds. Fantastic. You take that away. Are you going to forget Oaxaca? Is that something that you're going to trash in your short-term memory? Or is that something that is going to stay with you? And if they do their job correctly, is going to stay with you for a long time. And you know you can actually get these from an English company that will also do every other kind of seed that you can think of. They're called Tobar, T-O-B-A-R. And they're based just outside of Norwich on an old air runway strip from a disused aerodrome. Tobar, Tobar.co.uk. And I like this one. I saw this at the beginning of this year. This is a New Zealand company called Icebreaker. And they sell merino wool coats and outfits. And if you go into a shop and you buy one, when you buy that merino wool coat or outfit, there's a little tag on it. And that tag has got a barcode on it, which I think is fantastic. And if you go onto their website and you key in that barcode, it will take you to a place that will tell you the name of the sheep that contributed its wool to your merino outfit. It will tell you where it's grazing. It will tell you the name of the farm, the name of the farmer, what it's fed on. It will tell you everything. Fantastic. And I said that is going to be the start of something really big, where there is absolute direct interaction between something that you do and then something that you get a chance to be involved in. Think of the possibilities for your own businesses of what you could do on something like that, where a customer buys something from you, a product or a service, but as a result of that, you get them to then do something, which is not necessarily in order to get the money, but it's maybe something to do with the community. Maybe it's something where they give some money to the community or to a charity, or that they raise money for a certain cause. Just think of what you can do. How much does this cost? Hardly anything. There are guys in this room that could put that website together in half a day to make that happen. And I did predict that that will be probably one of the next biggest things. And you know what? 1 week ago, John West Salmon launched this whole idea with its tins of tuna. That you go out, you buy a John West tin of tuna, and there is a code on the lid. Go onto the website, key in the code, and it tells you everything about where that tuna was caught, the stretch of water, and you can even name the boat. And probably as that campaign increases, it will tell you the people on the boat as well. And the television campaigns are really backing that up. But hey, people, is this rocket science? Is this something that is so beyond any of us to do? But if we're honest, we're not doing it, and we're not doing it well enough. But we could, because it is that simple. It just takes sitting down and thinking, forget rational benefits for the present time, and let's talk about emotions. Now, of course, you have got to have rational, logical benefits. If you go out and buy a car, you want to know there's a wheel on each corner, of course, and one to steer with. Yes, of course, you want to know that, but you know, that's not the reason that you buy a car. You know? That's the entry to the market, isn't it? You have to have those things in order to sell a car. But then the question is, what car? See, I know that I could buy my wife Mary a quite nice handbag from our local high street shop for about £25, £30 maybe. She would disagree. She would want at least double that, minimum. But if I put a Jimmy Choo handbag in front of her and said, here it is, it's about £4,000, but which one would you rather have? Well, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really? But the important thing is, you see, is that the Jimmy Choo handbag isn't a handbag. That's not why people pay £4,000 for a handbag. People buy Jimmy Choo for what Jimmy Choo is about. It's about the emotions. And on my website, there's a whole article from Tamara Mellon, who owned Jimmy Choo, to say when people buy my products, they don't buy them because they want to buy a handbag or a pair of shoes. Anyone can buy a handbag or a pair of shoes. They buy the meaning that's behind it, that's always emotional, never rational. Of course, when you've bought it emotionally, then you will justify it with logic and rationality. So as the saying goes, people buy on emotion and then justify with logic. Oh yeah, I had to have this Ferrari. I just had to have it. And hey, think about what's under the engine and think about this and think about that. Yeah, but that's not why you bought it, because you don't even know what half of those things mean. Classic example, anybody seen the ads on TV that says Intel inside? And there's this little jingle, dum, da 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 dum. Yeah, Intel inside. You know, that's been the most successful kind of industry campaign that's ever taken place on the face of the earth. And people by the thousands rush into places like PC World and say, I want to buy that laptop, but does it have Intel inside? And they haven't got a bloody clue what they're talking about. They don't know what it is. They don't know what a computer chip is, what it looks like, how big it is, what it does. But it's got to be Intel inside. You think that's rational? Think that's logical? Hell no, that's emotional, full stop. And that's what we need to be able to do. And then finally, communication. What can I say about communication? We've got the expert sitting with us, obviously, Drayton, but I'll just make a few of these points. Look outward, not inward. Now, when I say that, that does not mean that you cannot tell a story. But if you're going to tell a story, make it exciting, make it interesting, make it believable, make it tug at the heartstrings. What about somebody like this old guy that ran an old petrol station, run-down petrol station, but he got enough business to live on. After all, he was about 75 years old. And then one day he got a letter from the council saying, we're actually building a bypass right the way past your little old petrol station. And this was in the middle of nowhere in America. And he knew that his time was very short in terms of being able to run that petrol station. And all he had was this little tiny kind of walk-in cafe next door with a couple of seats, and he used to sell a recipe that his mother used to make. And he thought, I wonder if other people would be interested in this, because I've got nothing else to do. So using his pension money, drove out to a restaurant and said, look, would you like to buy this recipe, but not buy it in terms of you give me a load of money for it, but for every dish of this that you sell, you just give me a percentage back. And they said, clear off, or words to that effect. So he went to another one. And then he went to another one and another one. And each time he'd run out of money, he'd go back home, collect his pension, sleep in the car, and go back out again. 500 miles, 600 miles, 700 miles. And 998 restaurants told him to get lost. And the 999th restaurant said, okay, we'll give it a try. And that was the beginning of what you now know as Kentucky Fried Chicken. Isn't that a lot better than saying, we've been in business for 100 years and we did this and we did that? It's a compelling story. People want to read things like that. Philosophy and culture. You can talk about that as long as it's emotive. Your company's dreams and passions. You can do that as long as it's emotive. Don't use conceptual language that irritates the hell out of me and probably does a lot of you that are into the copywriting side. Things like flexible solution. I mean, what in the world is a flexible solution? What does it mean? Where's the context? Integrated approach. What an integrated approach? What on earth does that mean? Scalable architecture. I mean, talk to Drayton about these things, because he's actually told me off on more than one occasion for using language that he claims is complete bollocks, and he's right. Or worn out cliches. Thankfully, I don't use the ones like, come to us for quality and service, you'll be glad you did, and all that kind of stuff that doesn't belong in anybody's business. Don't use words like quality and service, because I don't know what quality means in regards to your product or your service until I try it, and you haven't persuaded me at that point. And if you're interested, I've done something called emotional storytelling, which was another presentation at one of Drayton's events on that whole subject. So that's something that you want to think about, and you can talk to Mary about that. All of these people have been able to give out stories that are important, that are emotional. Richard Branson, we've talked about a lot. He's a fantastic guy. He's written his autobiography. I'm sure you've seen it, and there are other people that have written that on his behalf as well. His story is emotional. He actually gets to fly with passengers on his plane and talk to them. And when you fly on Virgin Atlantic, if you've ever flown with them, instead of doing the safety routine, you know, the exit's there, and all of that, they say there may be 50 ways to leave your lover, but there's only 4 ways out of this airplane. That's fantastic. And when you're coming into land, the pilot says, the next time you decide to shoot yourself through space in a silver bullet at 500 miles an hour, we hope it's going to be with Virgin. You're not going to hear that from BA or anybody else. And what about the late Steve Jobs? I don't know what Apple's going to be or how it's going to work out now, but you can't say that he wasn't at least the visionary behind it. Did anything that he ever say was regarded as boring? I don't think so. When he stood up and gave speeches, so important, so full of passion. What about you? What about when you give a presentation? What about when you go and see a potential customer or even an existing customer? Who are you? What do you say? What about James Dyson? Is he all about vacuum cleaners? No way. Read his story. Full of passion and engagement. Susan Boyle, 10 million plus hits on YouTube. Within the first sort of few months, I think it's gone up to something like 50 million hits now on YouTube. Is it about her voice? Well, her voice is okay. It's sold quite a few records. But hey, is that what the hits are all about? Of course not. It's about the passion and the emotion behind her. J.K. Rowling, is she the best writer in the world? No. Listen to some of her speeches, especially at the speech that she gives at Harvard University for those leaving the university, full of passion and emotion. And I had the privilege of doing a little bit of work for this lady, Dame Anita Roddick, from the Body Shop. Started the Body Shop off between 2 funeral director parlours. Do you think her story was about, we do this and we do that? It was about her passion for wanting fair trade and not testing on animals, etc., etc. What's your version? And this is the last but one slide. For those of you that run a small business, but even those of you that don't, I need to ask you a question to conclude. Are you an expert? I spoke to a business person the other week, and I said to this person, are you an expert in your field? And they said no. And I said, well, why the hell would I want to use you then? I don't want to go to my boss if I'm an employee and say, guess what? I've just hired the 973rd best person to do this job. If you are not the expert, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing in business if you're not the expert? But you see, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be perceived as the expert. You know, I'm the world's leading expert on branding. But even if I wasn't, and that's never going to happen, but even if I wasn't, I would be. I'd make sure of that. Because it's all about perception. It's not about academic qualifications, because the top 10 entrepreneurs of the world don't have academic qualifications. So it's not about qualifications. It's only about perception. Experts are a mental construct in Brian's mind. You know, celebrities sell more products and services than the qualified people to sell them. So someone on TV that's selling a toothpaste is probably going to be a celebrity with nice white teeth, rather than somebody that could medically qualify what that toothpaste is all about. How can an ex-policeman sell security products more so than somebody who makes the security products? Well, because everybody perceives that, well, he's a policeman, so he must be an expert. Today, for a small business, positioning yourself as an expert is not just one way, it's the best way that you can build your business and build your brand. You've got newspapers, articles, social media, interviews, white papers, networking, all of these tools you've got at your disposal to become perceived as the expert. Are you using them? How about writing a book, self-publish a book? Do a little e-book that people can download and then send it to as many influential people as you can. That'll make you an expert. Everybody will think, well, you're on the radio, no one else is. You're the one being interviewed, so you must be the expert in your field. And again, it applies to every single kind of business or product, service that you sell, that you are involved in. So let's conclude then. Don't be a commodity casualty. Don't be one of the 120 or maybe double that are going broke, going bust every single day because they don't know what they're doing. They can only sell on one thing and one thing only, and that's price. And when they haven't got that, then they've run out of anything that they can do. But you can build a powerful brand. And that secret key that I've talked to you about this afternoon is emotion. That's the only thing that will get Brian's attention, is emotion. Because his brain is wired emotionally. And his female counterpart, Brianna, is wired emotionally. And if you can get through to that long-term memory, you are going to be very, very successful. And you use that EPIC, E-P-I-C, emotion, perception, innovation, communication, four-stage process, and you will build yourself a powerful brand. And who knows, maybe one day we'll bump into one another again. I've already seen some familiar faces, like I've said. Maybe we'll meet again. And by that time, I might be selling matches on the street corner, and you'll be a multi-billionaire because you've used that process to build yourself a very powerful brand. Thanks a lot.